Today we have another over-the-air patch, and there are some pretty cool changes. The biggest ones, not necessarily with the cards themselves, but with locations. And so going through the card changes immediately, we have Drax, who's going from a 4-5 to a 4-6, but his own reveal ability is changing, so this is going to be a side grade. Before, his own reveal was if your opponent played a card here, get +3 power. Now it's +2 power. So this is to increase his baseline performance. I don't think this is going to have a drastic change on Drax. I think we will still see very little. We are starting to see a few more of the Guardians, but a lot of times that 4-cost slot, we already have so many good performers that Drax has a hard time fitting in. And so I think we'll see some Drax, but I don't think this is going to increase it all that much. Then we have Rockslide. So we all know, if you've been actively playing, that Rockslide Hawk has been everywhere. In the stature list, which is the best statistically performing deck in the game, a Hawk Dino, a Hawk Doom Wave, just the Hawk package, that 3-card unison of Korg, Rockslide, and Hawk is just so valuable in terms of disruption and just raw power that I do think this is good for the card. I hope that this brings it down just a notch, but it goes from 4-6 to a 4-5 for the Rockslide. The number of rocks that are shuffled into the opponent's deck stays the same, but it loses a little bit of that baseline power. Next up, we have Enchantress. Our girl Enchantress has been all over the place. So 2 weeks ago, she got bumped up to 4-6, and then we saw a huge bump in decks that utilized and wanted to run Enchantress. So then even if you didn't have a good target for Enchantress, a 4-6 stat line, just baseline, is pretty solid as far as just raw value if you don't have anything better to play. And so she is getting brought down to 4-5 to be a little bit more in that middle ground compared to where she was and where she is now. And so I think we'll still see a lot of Enchantress, but I don't think it'll be as easy to just slam into whatever deck you want to put it in and it perform as well. So I think we'll see it taper off ever so slightly. And then the last card update that we have is Venom. Venom is going from a 3-1 to a 3-3. And right off the bat, this doesn't seem like it's going to change all that much, but that baseline power is pretty big. So our Deathlock that doesn't have any other upside other than destroying the cards is a 3-5. So a lot of times using Venom over Deathlock didn't make a lot of sense. There wasn't a lot of reason to slot that in. Now, with an extra 2 power, that puts it in that middle ground, so it's cutting the difference between what it was before at 3-1 and that Deathlock at 3-5, but it has the increased upside of being better in locations like Bar Sinister, in locations like Cloning Vats, and just having an insane amount of high roll potential. Venom is getting just that little bit of extra bump, which I think is really cool. And I'm interested to see how much this increases destroy decks and the amount of destroy decks that we see. And if we see a large increase, I think we start seeing more armors as a result as well. And then the next part is the part that excites me the most. It is a locational over-the-air change. Now, they did preface this and say that it is a small tweak to the weight of the chance that these locations will appear, but these are all of the most toxic locations in the game. So we have Atilin, where we're going to shuffle our cards back into our deck, and it always feels bad. It's so hard to play around Atilin. And then we have Krakoa, the miniaturized ego that is now being reduced in weight that it appears, which I think is a huge win. It always stinks to be setting up a play and then Krakoa come in and take over and just do the worst play possible. And then we have Lechuguilla, so the rock location, where when you play cards into it, you get more rocks in return. And so this was a good locational or situational location for Hawk in being able to force the opponent into not really being able to do anything into that location for fear of buffing your Hawk up to an extreme where they just weren't able to beat it if they didn't have a direct counter. And so with that dropping off, 1, we're not going to have as much junk in our deck, and then 2, Hawk is slightly less impactful than he was before. And then we have Morag. Morag, I didn't necessarily have a problem with, but it could be kind of difficult, for especially for decks that want to run one card at a time. I don't know, Galactus. It is harder to play for Morag because you're typically going to be playing on curve. So Morag, you can't play your first card of the turn there. So this location was kind of cool for lockdown style decks that wanted to run a Storm into a Spider-Man or Professor X in a different lane. And then the opponent or both of you couldn't play anything on that final turn. You could really lock out the game early. I'm okay with seeing it a little bit less often because it is very, very restrictive. And then we have Plunder Castle, the location where you can't play anything but 6-cost cards. This was really hard to play into, and a lot of decks don't necessarily want to run 6 cost cards. And so seeing this a little bit less often, I think is a big win. You have Sanctum Sanctorum, which you can't play cards there, which influence the popularity of cards like Doctor Doom, being able to reach those hard-to-reach locations. Without Sanctum Sanctorum, you can play for more locations more often, and you will still see Sanctum Sanctorum, just less often than you did before. And then the biggest one, the one that I'm the most excited about, is Subterranea. You're not going to as often get just junk slammed into your deck like you would before. And so I think this is another small hit to Hawk. And so where he was incredibly consistent in these locations when they came up was just a benefit, there's still going to be a benefit to that Hawk package, but it's just going to be less often. And so I'm curious how that impacts the Hawk combo overall. And so with less junk, and I think we'll start slowly seeing Hawk taper off a little bit. And with less junk in our deck, I think we start seeing a rise in Thanos or Lockjaw Thanos again. Because Lockjaw Thanos, the worst thing for that deck is having extra cards or extra junk in your deck that you can potentially flip into. So you flip a stone into a rock and you're just hurting so much from losing out on that potential flip. And so if there's less Hawks being ran, if there's less locations that send you this junk, I think Thanos Lockjaw will be a little bit more impactful. What are your thoughts? I think this will be a small but meaningful shift in the metagame for the time being until next week when we have a bigger patch on our hands. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I've been really enjoying the over-the-air patches and those small tweaks, those small changes to be able to continue to influence brewing, influence playing different types of cards, giving them that small bump that they need, maybe shift back into the metagame where they may not have been impactful previously. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.